Sonic Frontiers has been a hot topic to talk about on Twitter, and has been a huge discussion point in the fanbase in general. Many have played it, many have traveled to different countries just to get a taste of Sonic's new adventure. And I was, like any other, I traveled all across England, from Manchester to London to the XL at EGX. Yes, I have played the game, I have played it for 30 minutes, I got 2 demo sessions in, and yes, I'm ready to talk about it. Sit back, relax, and let me talk to you about my initial thoughts on Sonic Frontiers.
Hey, pump it up!
So like I mentioned in the intro, I played 2 demo sessions of Sonic Frontiers at EGX, which, by the way, was my first time going to London. I took a few videos of just me on the train, which should be playing right now. I took some pictures of the event. I even got a picture of me on a bat bike from Gotham Knights. However, you're all here to listen to me talk about Sonic Frontiers for who knows how long. So, like I said, I did 2 demo sessions. I got in line twice, so I've played the game for a total of 30 minutes. Now, the first playthrough that I did was a lot more focused on learning. It was focused on learning the mechanics, getting used to everything like the controls, since there was a lot more in-depth and a lot more different than I was used to with any other game in the franchise. There was also the aspect to just try to get comfortable with the game as possible so that I could get the most out of it, to experience the most out of it. And that was pushed even further in my second playthrough, as I did a lot more speedrun strats, and I got quite far to where I got flung by the Titan and woke up in a complete daze. So yeah, there's a bit to talk about, and I'm going to try my best to talk about it in general. I was going to include a Q&A and someone else's impressions, however that will be a part 2 to this video, so I hope you are willing to wait a bit longer for any Q&As for me to answer your questions. So this video is going to be a lot more unscripted. It's going to be a lot more of me just sitting and talking to you about Frontiers. And let's just start off with the demo itself. So there was a pretty sizable kiosk booth at EGX for Sega, but it was more Sonic centric. They did have a completely other booth in another part of the building, which was more media focused, but that was for the press as well as like business, insiders and stuff. People like the opposite to me, some guy from Manchester who just liked Sonic a bit too much. But when I got to the event, Sonic was definitely the most popular thing there. I think the only other game that really equated to the popularity and the amount of queuing up you had to do was, I think, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which I actually got a picture of the like outside of the kiosk, but I didn't go in since I wasn't that interested in it, which I kind of regret now. I could have gone in there and just took a few more pictures, but I think I heard that recording wasn't allowed with any of the demos, so I wasn't able to take any footage of Frontiers, and even if I did, it would have been really crappy anyway. It was just me, and I didn't have any like proper like cameras and stuff. It would have just been on my phone. So I'm going to be using a lot of already released material as well as other people's material, which I will credit them in the video as well as the description. So please bear with me as I collect as much stuff as possible and to try and recreate my experience with other people's footage. So yeah, I got in line for the queue. It probably lasted around like 15 to 30 minutes for me to get into the actual demo itself. There was little rooms. It was like, okay, so it was like 4 like main rooms full of PCs. I didn't actually go in there to see them, but I definitely like saw quick glimpses of people, from Sega PR opening up the doors and stuff. And speaking of, the Sega PR, I actually talked to one of the guys working at the kiosk, and he talked about how, oh, is this your first time playing Frontiers? And I said, no, this is my second time. I've already been in line for it. And he talked about how there were people who would wait in line, get to play the demo, then they would leave the kiosk, and then come right back again. And he said that he saw people like 10 times doing it, and I'm kind of just stunned, like, Jesus Christ. I kind of wish I could do that myself, but I was only at London for like 5-6 hours in general, and a lot of it was just me getting to the event itself. But yeah, I got to play Frontiers twice, so I got to play 30 minutes of it, and I think it was enough for me to get a general understanding of what the game is, what it's offering at the very start. So we might as well just start talking about it. Also, I also need to emphasize this demo was on PC. I think the first demo that I played was at 30 FPS, I believed, while the second demo was more 60 FPS from what I could tell. I didn't run into any dips in frame rate or anything like that. There was some pop in, which was a bit of a shame, but other than that, it ran pretty well. So yeah, let's just talk about the demo itself. So I sat down, I pressed start, and I was given the option for easy, medium, or hard, and I chose medium or normal, as I really wanted to just get used to the controls. I just wanted to get used to everything. I will be picking the hard difficulty when I properly play the game in November. However, for now, I just wanted to have a nice introduction to the game to give it as fair of a shot as possible, and just not get my ass handed to where I'm wasting more time trying to get past things. Because again, I wanted to experience as most as possible. And I did choose the high speed setting, which gives you a limited boost, but you're a lot more faster and a lot more, what would you call it? Energetic. So the demo starts with Sonic waking up, which we've seen before. We've seen it in the 4-game footage, which I'll be playing right now. And Roger sounds great here. I really need to spend like a quick moment talking about his performance. As you already know, Roger is, his performance as Sonic a lot of the time is the, happy-go-lucky, optimistic, super energetic, surfer dude type approach. And I don't mind it. In fact, I actually like it I like it a lot in some of the games. I grew up with Roger because I played a lot of Generations and Lost World 3DS when I was little. However, for this demo, he sounds a lot more serious. It sounds a lot more natural. If you like Dave's voice as Knuckles from the recent Tales tube, I'm going to say that you're going to enjoy Roger's voice in this, as well as Cindy Robinson as Amy. She sounded a lot more toned down and a lot more natural with her delivery. The characters felt a lot more relatable, and they felt a lot more, how would you say it? Like, they felt a lot more real. Like, they were feeling a lot of, emotions, and it felt like the situations they were in was reflected in their voice. For example, when Sonic gets launched by the Titan and he wakes up, he's actually panting. He's actually like distraught. Like he's just woken up from a really bad dream, and it's really, really good delivery from Roger. I'd say my favorite cutscenes in general was the introduction cutscene. I realized that it really set the mood perfectly. However, also saving Amy from her little capsule cocoon thing, and then getting thrown by the Titan. I really love those cutscenes. And little known fact: when you interact with the Titan in the cutscene, first off, it just materializes. You don't just run into it. What you do is you collect the red Chaos Emerald, and then the whole thing materializes. And from what I could tell from then, I was like, okay, some cutscenes are going to trigger when you collect certain Chaos Emeralds. So I played through, through both Cyberspace stages in my second playthrough, and that's when I got that finger. And that was enough for me to be able to reach the Titan cutscene. And what happens is, you already know this, you got flung in the air, and then you get a bunch of boulders to home and attack into. But I missed it due to me actually clicking the melee button instead. So Sonic fell. But I didn't get a game over, I didn't get a try again thing. I actually got an additional cutscene with Sonic falling on the ground, getting back up, running, smirking, and then getting launched back up again. But, Roger is giving off this voice that he's actually ready for this time. It's not like out of the blue, like, oh shit, I'm getting launched in the air. No, he's trying to not intensify, to get the Titan to launch him back up so he could get some, get to the actual head. When he does, a bunch of Dutch angles with the camera happens a lot, and I really need to praise the cinematographer. I really liked the use of the camera. The cutscenes were really engaging, especially with the help of the camera. Like, it was actually very cinematic. The music was amazing. A lot of violin and piano, as well as drums and stuff, really made it a big moment in the story, even so early on. And, you know, again, you get launched through a bunch of those pillars, you get thrown on the wall, and you wake up later on. And Sonic is doubting himself. Like, there was a picture that I released. I think it was the first picture with this piece of dialogue. And it was talking about how Sonic was doubting himself. He was talking about how he's going to need the Chaos Emeralds and a bit of luck, which, you know, it kind of implies that, you know, Super Sonic might be able to defeat the Titan, but it might not even be enough. And I think, you know, that's a symptom of Ian Flynn's writing. I believe that a lot of his influence from the IDW comics is really, you know, pushed through with the games, which I really, really like the sound of. But yeah, that was pretty much it for the cutscenes. I probably experienced like 6 to 7 cutscenes in my second playthrough. But yeah, I really love the, you know, the story so far. I think it's really interesting, and it's a lot more well done than a lot of other, you know, Sonic plots. But, you know, after that we get to the open zone, and there's actually quite a lot to talk about it with her. And I'm gonna go through my notes here with the open zone. And the first note that I made was, it was just very fun to run around and explore. Like, this game really rewards you for your exploration and your curiosity. So any symptom of any good open world game or open zone game or any sandbox exploration game is you are rewarded for your curiosity. They say that curiosity killed the cat, but here you get rewarded a lot. So I remember, what do you call it? So there was a few platforms on a cliffside in the tutorial area, and I was kind of wondering, okay, how I'm gonna get that up there? And I thought, you know, maybe running up the wall could possibly work. However, I wanted to see what the actual way was, so I explored around the area for a little bit, and I found a spring with a light dash thing going up to like one of those pink rings, and it launched me into these platforms in the cliffside. So then I jumped on them, I did a few more platforming challenges, and I found some more memory tokens for Aimer. And, you know, that curiosity gets rewarded a lot. There's a lot of grind rails that you can go on that can take you to different parts of the map, as it kind of works as a quick travel. And I remember this was brought up in a previous video or something like that. That you know, the main way that they want to try and get you out of the menus and into actually playing the game is through using grind rails as a, you know, quick travel mechanic. And I think for here, because I actually did use it a bit, I think it really works. I think it's a really cool concept, and I think they do it pretty well. Especially the fact that the rails really do propel you quite forward. They're very fast. They're very useful. And I feel like I'm going to see myself use it quite a lot, especially because, you know, sometimes Sonic can just not be fast enough at his base speed, especially. So, like, early on in game, I think it'll be a good way to quickly maneuver around the island quite a bit. But also, you know, it kind of relates back to the main point of, you know, all these side objectives and stuff, and it kind of reminisces of the branching pathways in other Sonic games. So instead of being in a linear hallway with extra routes and all that leading to the Gull Ring like every other Sonic stage does, this one really just does it uses that, but in a lot more of an open setting. So instead, you'll find a grindable path which will take you off the island, kind of like, you know, more on the cliffside, hovering just above the water. And you'll have a bunch of, you know, platforming challenges to do, and then you'll get a grind rail in and take you back to the island. And it's really fun. Like, it's those short, it's short enough to where it doesn't feel annoying, but it's long enough to feel like, you know, it's actually worth doing. And I think because of the freedom of this game, it just works really well. And, you know, platforming was really fun to do in general. And it had a very playful feeling, like Breath of the Wild. And I know, like, that's the annoying comparison people have in general, but Breath of the Wild was very playful in the way you traverse the world, finding all these little secrets, lore tidbits, and stuff like that. Frontiers has that in spades, and I couldn't be happier because it really helps make the open zone engaging in general. And I just had so much fun just exploring it. It was a very fun place to, you know, just dive into. there's so much to do, but I never felt overwhelmed. It just all naturally came to me to where I felt comfortable just going around doing any odd job I could do. And yeah, it was overall just really fun to just traverse. So now I kind of have to move on a little bit to the combat, since the open zone is half of the actual open zone, weirdly enough, and half of it is dedicated to the combat. So the combat, for me personally, is really fun. It is very, very fun, and sometimes even satisfying to a really weird degree. Now, don't go in expecting like Devil May Cry combat or Metal Gear, Metal Gear Rise, like Revengeance and stuff, like combat like that. Don't expect that. I think it's a very, very open and user-friendly combat experience. So you have the X button, not the X button. I think it's like no, it is the X button. So you have the X button on the Xbox controller, and that does your main combos. So you'll do a few punches and kicks, and then you'll do like a proper either kick or like a parkour move. It's really hard to describe one of the moves that you do with it. But you can also dodge, you can also parry, and you can also use a Cyloop to take down enemies or stun them to give them effect. Now, obviously, the combat for this is like at the very start of the game. So, your defense and your attack is like level 1, and you don't have any like other combos or any other upgrades that you can use in combat. So it's a lot more vanilla. However, I think for just the vanilla combat, which I can see you upgrading quite soonish, I think it was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm not someone who's really that much into combat games because I've not played that many. However, I found myself really enjoying the combat for Frontiers. My favorite enemies to take down was definitely the Guardians, so the ninja and the tower boss. So for the ninja boss, it's just the amount of agility that the ninja has. It's incredibly fast, and it's really, really fun to just dance around it and just trying to get any hits you can, and then have to back off and wait for it to get rid of its patterns. Same with the tower. The little projectiles it shoots out of its body. You have to maneuver around them. You have to Cyloop and destroy all the pillars underneath. But that's not even how you actually damage the enemy. You have to damage the very top of their head, which is always protected by that little spinning gear thing. And a lot of the battles really require you to pay attention and to engage with the combat itself. So I noticed many times during my play sessions that even though I was trying to be as quick as possible, I could have been a lot more quicker. And I feel that was because these enemies, while having patterns and stuff for you to just usually follow, there are ways to end the fights really quickly if you're skilled enough. And I think that is really, really good to know and very, very encouraging to know. As I feel that a lot of people are always worried about combat games being too button masher. And if all you do is just do the traditional combos, it's going to be button masher. But if you actually get engaged with the fight and you try not to get hurt or anything like that, the combat system is very snappy. It's very quick. Of course, related to Sonic's character, the abilities you can use are really cool, and it just has a lot of potential. I think later down the line, late game stuff, I think it has some really, really good potential for tech and stuff like that. And same for the Cyloop. The Cyloop was a really fun ability to use. I think the main use I had for the Cyloop, of course, she was using the circle and stuff to get rid of the pillars on the tower enemy, but was also to do the infinite Cyloop ability. So there is a way to get infinite boost, to where, of course, you have the stamina meter next to Sonic, but there's a way to get infinite boost, and that's just by doing the Cyloop in an infinite symbol. And it's a really, really cool feature, and I've seen people do the traditional circle. I've seen them do a bunch of different, what do you call it? There was a lot of really cool stuff people were doing with it. However, I used it mainly to get infinite boost. And even then, though, it was really fun to use, and it was very, very helpful as well. It really helped with the flow of the game. Boosting while doing the Cyloop is like the most optimal thing to do. But yeah, it was just really fun to use, especially the drop dash. So the drop dash is in this game. What you have to do is you have to press jump and then jump again, and then you have to hold the jump button again, and then you'll do the drop dash. And it's not really great for turning, but for going downhill, there's definitely an increase in speed, and that's when I noticed that the game has some level of momentum. Now, I'm not someone who really genuinely cares too much about momentum. I think it's a cool feature, but it's not necessarily needed to make a good Sonic game. And it's never been needed to make a good Sonic game. And I feel that most of your favorite Sonic games does not have the level of momentum that any of the previous, 2D Sonic games had. So I noticed that, running downhill doesn't make too much of a difference. However, using the drop dash downhill definitely increases your speed. Like, there's definitely a lot of momentum going downhill. The boost doesn't do much going downhill, so I can see a lot of people boosting on straight terrain, then doing the drop dash downhill, and then going back to the boost. And I think that can make a really good flow for the game. But yeah, that was, that's my general thoughts on the open zone. In combat, I just feel very, happy about it. I think they've done a really good job. And, the story is really interesting, and, the delivery is really good for all the actors. However, now we have Cyberspace. Now, I know Cyberspace has been a very big contention point for a lot of people. And, some people said it's been good, some people said it's, sad, like bad. For me personally, I think, especially for the role that Cyberspace has in this game, the best way I could put it is Cyberspace works as a pace breaker. So, while the open zone can be fast enough, especially for people who are really good at the game, Cyberspace is really where you're going to get your traditional Sonic fix. It's kind of like a jab of adrenaline, stabbed into your arm. And, I say that in the best way possible. I really, my first playthrough, I thought Cyberspace levels were okay. I think they were fine. I did play Green Hill, and I played through Sky Sanctuary. First off, the music is amazing. The scenery is amazing. The effects they've got, like the flying neon lights, the CRT filters on outside terrain, is amazing and gorgeous. And for the level design, this one's a bit of an interesting one to talk about. Because while I knew that these level designs were based on Acts 1 and 2 from Sonic Unleashed, they never felt like clones. They never felt like I was playing through the same thing over and over again. I never got that feeling. And I'm being 100% truthful here. I never ever got that feeling from it. What I did get, especially when I was speedrunning through them, is I think they were fun. I think they were very, very fun, and I think they did really well what they were trying to do. And that is just be a buffer, a breaker in between all of the open zone stuff. If you're, just genuinely exploring the open zones and you want something a bit more faster pace, you'll get that in Cyberspace. And while it might be short for some people, I think they're the perfect length. I think they're, that quick boost, pun intended, of adrenaline that I think a lot of people really appreciate, especially in a longer playthrough. I'd say that my favorite Cyberspace level, what I played, was definitely Sky Sanctuary. The vibes and feelings that I got from that stage especially was really, really good. Like, I was really... Honestly, like, I think in general, there was never a point where I felt like there was a low point. I think I was riding quite high on this demo. And I'll talk about that in my proper conclusion. But yeah, Cyberspace, it was just generally good. I really enjoyed it. And yes, you can drop dash in Cyberspace. All of the moves that you have in the open zones, you can do in Cyberspace. I don't know about punching and kicking and stuff, but for like stuff like the slide and drop dash, yes, you can do that in Cyberspace. I will say though, that one of my main critiques of Cyberspace is the controls. However, unlike a lot of people where they think that, in cyberspace he doesn't control well or anything like that, I think he controls fine for what they're trying to go for, which is that linear hallway design. I think he controls fine for that. However, for weirdly enough, for his aerial movement, it's actually very, very good. It's very free. There's a lot of freedom in it, and I felt myself like actually platforming very well. Platforming in the stages is good. It's very good. However, for the ground control, it can be a bit weird for a lot of people, and it is something that you need to get really used to. And that goes into the topic of controls. Like, Sonic can just controls really, really well. I felt myself fully in control of Sonic. I didn't feel like, it was too stiff or it was too loose. It felt very precise. This is definitely the best Sonic has ever controlled in a 3D space ever since Adventure 1. And I only mean Adventure 1. I think Sonic there controlled beautifully in Sonic Adventure 1, and I think he controls especially well in Frontiers. Of course, stuff like momentum and stuff like that isn't here, but, for what they're trying to go for, what their vision is, I think they're doing a very, very bang up job, and I think that is the important thing here. They've done really well in everything. I feel that this wouldn't have worked if one bit of it was lackluster, and I feel very strongly about that. But due to the fact that they got everything right, especially, it's very impressive because a lot of it is their first time doing stuff like this. I'm very, very impressed about what I played. I was very impressed by it, and I think that just kind of helps me segue into my conclusive thoughts on Frontiers. I've been talking about Frontiers ever since we got, our first sneak peek of it in Sonic Central, and then we saw it at the Game Awards, and then we saw it in June, and then July, and then August, and now we're here in September, near the end of September, actually. The launch of Frontiers is fastly approaching, and it won't be too long. It will not be too long. I think it's like 44 days by the time I'm recording this that we will be playing Frontiers. And how would I make an overall quote or statement about my thoughts and feelings about Frontiers? And I think I've got the right thing here. Not only was Sonic Frontiers fun, engaging, and incredibly addicting to play, it gave me a feeling that many few games are actually able to give me. And that feeling was making me feel like a kid again. Games like Breath of the Wild, The Unfinished Swan, Final Fantasy VII Remake, games like them that really, they push off a feeling that they really do really well. Frontiers has that in spades. And throughout the demo, I couldn't help but just smile. I adored it. I genuinely, unapologetically adored it. Of course, there are issues still. The popping in the distance for objects and stuff, and that can be quite jarring. But other than that, my experience of Frontiers is incredibly positive. I never really had a low moment where it's like, oh yeah, okay, and that doesn't really work. No, I just thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I don't really have anything bad or mixed to say. And I know that might sound, weird to a lot of people, because obviously no game is perfect, and I don't think Frontiers will be perfect. But I can only really talk about my experience, and my experience was incredibly positive. Other than pop-in, I never really had any major other issues. I was just genuinely enjoying myself. And I think that's all the game really needs to do right now. I could go on about how Forces ruined a lot of things for a lot of people. But, for me, I thought Forces were decent for what it was, and, for what they were trying to do in such a short span of time developing it. Boy Frontiers, it's very evident that they've had so much time to work on this. They've ironed out so much. They made sure everything works. And they've added a bunch of little small things to really just put a smile on your face. And that's how I felt throughout the whole demo. I had the biggest smirk on my face. And, you know, for Sonic, the last time that happened was watching the Sonic movie 2 and the original Sonic movie. I'll always remember when I went to watch the original Sonic movie with my family, and I saw the opening, you know, Sega chant. And with all the games just popping up on screen, it really made me like swell up. It really made me feel emotional. And hearing the you know, the faint chant of Sega, that put the biggest smile on my face, and it reminded me of that. Just playing through this game was an experience and a half, and I couldn't have enjoyed it any more I could. Of course, this is only the first 30 minutes, or hell, 15 minutes to be more accurate. But I think if I was to give this a rating, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Very, very strong and solid 8 out of 10. And if the game can carry forward that feeling throughout the entirety of it, to not the point where it doesn't feel, you know, like a chore to go for anything, or feel a bit, you know, deflating, if it can keep up that high, you know, enthusiasm and that genuine feeling of happiness and joyfulness and playfulness, I think Sonic Frontiers could easily get to a 9 out of 10. But obviously right now I am at an 8 out of 10. I wish I could go on longer, but this video is already getting quite long in itself, so I don't want to waste any more of your time. Now, I was originally going to get someone else to give me their impressions so I could, you know, deliver it to you, you people watching this video, as well as a Q&A. However, I'm going to save that for a part 2, as this video is already going to take a bit of my time. I also still want to focus on uni right now. So yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up. If you have any questions, you can leave it down in the comments of the video below, or you could, you know, ask me on Twitter. But for that, I think this ends the video. So thank you all for watching. I hope you're all excited for Frontiers. If you are, then let me know. If there's anything you want to know, let me know and ask in the comments. Other than that, I said everything I can. So thank you all for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you all very soon. See you later.